Hi everyone, welcome to homework 1.11b. Today I am going to be a little bit ASMR-y and whispering because there's a meeting happening in the classroom, as you may have seen. So bump that volume up. Alright, so I'm going to start with this part of the classwork just to make sure I review it for those of you for whom this is new. So when we want to find the slope and we have two pairs of points, right, we're essentially counting how far up and down are we going and how far left to right are we going between those 2 points. Okay, and so to do that, what we're doing is we're calculating this point minus this point, right, in terms of the y values, and then also subtracting our x values to figure out how far apart they are in terms of side to side. Okay, and so what we use to do that is this equation in which we subtract y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, it doesn't matter which point you label as y1 or x1, it just matters that you do the same for both the x and the y value in that point. So if we say that this is x sub 1, then this has to be y sub 1. And then we could say that this one is x sub 2, this one has to be y sub 2. Okay? And so what we're going to do here then is we're going to substitute, instead of y sub 2 and y sub 1 and x sub 2 and x sub 1, we're going to substitute these numbers in for those parts of the point. Now, I strongly recommend that you put your minus signs in the formula there because that'll help you to remember that those minus signs are very important and need to be there. So I'm going to leave them there. Let me go and shift colors here. And so I'm going to substitute y sub 2 first. Y sub 2 we determined was negative 15, so that's going to go here. And then I'm subtracting y sub 1, which is negative 16. So this needs to be written as negative 16. And what happens then is when we have a minus, a negative number, subtracting, right? This kind of looks like it too. I like to think of it as this is like a plus sign right here. Okay, so that becomes a positive. And so then down below in the denominator, we're going to have x sub 2, which is negative 7, minus 19. All right. So now we have negative 15 plus 16. That's going to give us 1 over negative 7 and negative 19. They're both negative numbers, so we're going to combine them to be negative 26. All right, now only technically, right, if you were to write this, you would write this as negative 26 down here in the denominator. But if one part of our fraction is negative, then the whole thing is negative. So you can rewrite this as negative 1 over 26. All right, now let's look at another example with this one because we have a lot of negative numbers down there and we're going to see where this comes into play. So again, I'm going to just start by drawing my line and putting in the negatives because we want to make sure that we keep those. And then we're going to go ahead and fill in our numbers. So again, this can be x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I'm going to plug in y sub 2 first, so that's negative 4 minus 7, okay? And then negative 6 for x sub 2 minus a negative 4. So now I have two negative numbers, and so I can combine those and make negative 11. And then over that, we have negative 6. This is going to become a plus. So negative 6 plus 4 is going to leave me with negative 2. Well, now I have a negative over a negative. Now remember, a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive, so we can convert this to positive 11 over 2. Okay? Let's take a look. I'll go ahead and do one more. Let's take a look at number 2. We'll draw our line in lime this time and draw our minus signs ahead of time. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug values in here. So our y sub 2, negative 7, minus a negative 19, all over negative 2 minus 1. Now again, this is going to be a plus. We have a negative 7 and a positive 19. That's the same as saying 19 minus 7, so that gives us 12. And then negative 2 and negative 1 gives us negative 3. So you can rewrite this as negative 4 if you'd like, because we know that this is 4 over 1. We know that our line would be going down in a negative slope, okay? All right, so those are examples you can manage for on your own. Just a reminder to set up your equation first, your formula first, and then plug in those numbers. And again, doesn't matter, this can be set 1, this can be set 2, and see what you get. All right, so you did not have to do with this part here. All right, so you don't have to do this part. Sorry, I got interrupted, so if that sentence didn't make sense, my bad. We're going to take a look at 1.11b, and so here I gave you the formulas that you need right here, okay? So in case you forgot them, they're here. They're also in your notes, though, okay? So for this one, it says write the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line. So you're rewriting these equations, and we want to make them look like this guy here with the y equals our mx first, and then our b second, our slope, and then our y-intercept, okay? So we want to isolate y and get y all by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. 3x minus 3x gives me 0. Negative 2y then is going to be negative 16 minus 3x, or I can write this as negative 3x minus 16. I'm then going to divide both sides by negative 2. And remember, I have to divide the whole thing by that. So what we're going to end up then with is a positive 3 over 2x. And then negative 16 divided by negative 2 gives me plus 8. And that's my new form. I should also have a y equals written there. All right, let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to change the color of my pen here. All right, so again, I want to isolate y. So I'm going to start by subtracting 13x here, because the invisible thing in front of this 13 is a positive 13. So I want to subtract 13 from both sides. And so this will cancel out, and we'll be left with negative 11y equals negative 13x minus 12. Again, we want that x term to be first. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 11. And remember, I have to divide everything by that. And so you'll then get y equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we'll have positive 13x over 11. And then a negative over a negative, again, is a positive. So this becomes plus 12 over 11. And if you like, you can convert this to a decimal, or you can just leave it like this. That is fine. Particularly our slope in this form is super useful, because then we can just count up and down 13 and over 11, knowing that it's a positive slope, so it's going to be going this way. Okay? Let's look at the next one. So in the next one, we're again solving for y here. So we're going to subtract 9x from both sides. We're going to end up with negative 7y equals negative 9x minus 7. Divide both sides by negative 7. And again, each term needs to be divided by that. So we get y equals positive 9 over 7x. And then negative 7 over negative 7 gives us plus 1. Okay? Let's look at this next one. Let's go ahead and subtract x from both sides. Now, you may have noticed a pattern that if we have a minus here and we're subtracting x from both sides, we'll end up with a positive slope. So this will be negative 3y equals negative x plus 6. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And again, each term gets divided by that. So we get y equals a negative over a negative gives me positive. Now you can write this as x over 3, but what we really want to differentiate here is 1/3 x. And then 6 divided by negative 3 is going to give me negative 2. All right, so again, this x over 3 is the same as 1/3 times x. So keep that in mind when you end up with a fraction. I'll give you another example. If we had x over 5, this is the same as 1/5 x. If you have 2x over 5, this is the same as 2/5 x. As long as the x is in the numerator, you can just consider that being multiplied by your fraction. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at one more. So if we look at, let's see what this shimmery pink gold looks like. All right, so if we're going to subtract 6x on both sides, we get 5y equals negative 6x minus 15. Divide both sides by 5, and so we'll get y equals negative 6/5 x. So this is a great example of that x is in the numerator, so I can separate it from that fraction and write it as negative 6/5 x, and then negative 15 divided by 5 is going to be negative 3. Okay, so I'm going to do one more, and then I want you to do 7 and 8 on your own. You can do that. Okay, so for number 6, let's take a look. It's not letting me zoom, sorry. There we go. Nope, just kidding. All right, so minus 4x on both sides. And we're going to get negative y equals negative 4x plus 1. Now the reason I wanted to show you this example, and I didn't stop here, is because we want to get rid of this negative in front of the y. And so if we want to get rid of that negative in front of the y, we're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides in all terms. So we get y equals negative 4x divided by negative 1 is going to become positive 4x, and then positive 1 divided by negative 1 is going to become negative 1. Okay, so again, to get rid of the negative, we divided by a negative, because a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. You could have, alternatively, and we will get the same answer, is you could also multiply the whole thing by negative 1. And this will give us a positive y, and then a positive 4x, and then a negative 1. Okay, so you'll get the same answer whether you divide by negative 1 or multiply by negative 1. That's how we neutralize that negative. Okay, so try 7 and 8 on your own. Again, following those steps, first get rid of that x, and then go ahead and divide by the coefficient of y to get your slope-intercept form. Now this one down here is asking you to write the standard form of the equation through the given point with the given slope. So this equation is up here at the top of your paper here. I'm going to go ahead and mark it down here as well. So we have y minus y sub 1 equals slope times x minus x sub 1. So here in this equation, the only thing that I am replacing or substituting is going to be your x sub 1 and your y sub 1, and then your slope, m. The y and the x need to stay there because that's part of the equation. So let's take a look at this as an example. So using this equation, I'm going to substitute y sub 1 here. This is the y value because we write our values as x comma y. So I'm going to start with y minus 2 equals, slope is 7, so 7 is being replaced here for the m, times x minus x sub 1 is 1. Now, I want to put this, it says write it in standard form. I'm going to actually, for this video, show you how to put it into slope-intercept form, and I'll accept that as well. So I'm then going to go ahead and distribute, not erase, distribute the 7 through the parentheses. So we'll get y minus 2 equals 7x minus 7. Now I can go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and we'll get y equals negative 2 and positive 2 is 0, 7x, and then negative 7 plus 2 is going to be negative 5. There you have an equation that now makes sense. You've got your y-intercept, and you also have your slope. Okay? And we knew the slope, so we can tell that that makes sense there. Okay? Now let's take a look at the other one. So same thing. We're going to use this. This is x sub 1. This is y sub 1. And that's the part we're replacing in the equation. So y minus a negative 1 equals, slope is negative 1 times x minus 3. Okay? Again, I substituted negative 1 for x sub 1, or y sub 1, and 3 for x sub 1. Now, y minus a negative 1 becomes plus, and then I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So we have y plus 1 equals negative x, and then plus 3. Now I need to get rid of this 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and we get y equals negative x plus 2. Now this negative right here is going to be your slope, so that means you have a negative slope of negative 1 over 1. You go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Okay? All right. Now up above in your directions, it said graph the even ones. So on the next page, you have a set of 4 graphs. So we're going to go to number 2 first. And so number 2 is kind of a weird one. Remember that it has these fractions here. So we're just going to ballpark it, right? So we're starting with our y-intercept of 1 and 1/11. So our y-intercept is going to be like just above the 1 here. And then we're going, our slope here is 13 over 11, and it's a positive slope. So we're going up 13 and over 11. So I'm going to count up 13, 1, 2, 3, well, actually it's just above, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 we'll estimate. And then over 11, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's like somewhere up over here. All right, so just as well as you can, you'll draw the graph. I should see that you have roughly a starting point of a little bit more than 1 and then going up 13 and over 11. All right, let's take a look at number 4. Number 4, we came up with this right here. And so -2 is our starting point. And then it says our slope is 1 over 3, positive 1 over 3, so we're going this direction. So I'm going to go up 1 over 3, up 1 over 1, 2, 3, up 1 over 1, 2, 3, up 1 over 1, 2, 3, and then use your ruler to go ahead and connect those dots. I'm on a computer, so I'm not going to connect the dots because you saw what happened in the last one. It just doesn't look that good. You can go backwards down the other way, down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. So up and down 1, side to side 3. Okay? Let's try number 6. So number 6 is right here, positive slope and -1 for our y-intercept. So -1 and a positive slope of 4 over 1. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. So forth and so on. So you can go ahead and connect those dots and you'll have a nice line there. And then number 8, I said you have to do on your own. So number 8, you're going to graph on your own, following the example that I just gave you. Draw your y-intercept, go up whatever's in your numerator and over whatever's in your denominator, right? So this is up and down and side to side, okay? If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Your code word for today is oro. Oro, O-R-O. Oro stands for gold in Spanish, and since I used a gold pen, that's what it is today. All right, happy homeworking, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.